in that sense, because obviously in school you're not really given that flexibility. You're in from 9 till 3, whatever, to give you the work. Would you not say like in some ways you flourish having that, that open timetable, really because of like, because I know you said your dad like owns a corner shop. That's obviously
Yeah,
an
yeah.
entrepreneurial, like do it yourself type of
Like,
person, but
they are very entrepreneurial in that sense, but because like I made a decision from young that I just didn't want to follow the same route as they did, because like as much as they are like entrepreneurial, I feel like from my perspective anyway that there's a lack of insight to how much they could get out of their job purely because they just don't have the knowledge to do that. Like, for example, like, let's say like my dad, for example, owns a fabric shop, and the way a big company would approach that kind of situation is, okay, let's do some research and research analysis and like market analysis of, let's say, what's the ideal location for A, owning said fabric shop, and B, let's do the like market analysis to say what products can we put out to maximize profit, right? But that kind of research doesn't go into my dad's and his cohort's thought process, is because they just don't know that that's a thing. And I feel like I want to like kind of like start gaining like, because what they do, sorry if I'm waffling, but like what they do is that like they just see it as a job that they go in, go out, go in for the day, come out for the night. And there's not necessarily an idea of like building on like an empire per se.
Okay.
So that there's no like sense of like generational wealth being like brought in. It's just, how do we get through this day? And I get that that's a working class problem. But I feel like I just need to take a different route so that we like get out of the working class and like permanently, and like build on an empire to gain like generational wealth rather than like just day to day, paycheck to paycheck kind of scenario.
Big talk, man.
Yeah, like like I had that idea from very young, and plus like I just don't think that style of work suits me anyway. Like I'm more of a analytical person anyway. So I feel like my skill set isn't suited to like, and I just get bored mentally of doing that kind of work. Like I just wouldn't feel mentally challenged.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I feel like if I went down that route, it'd be kind of like, I'd see it as a waste of what I could potentially do, like a waste in comparison to what I could potentially do anyway.
Yeah, I hear that. Because like whenever we talk, I can tell you always try and take like a holistic approach to like a lot of problems that you deal with. Like I remember you talking about how there are different profit margins on cigarettes and alcohol versus like confectionery products. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, surely it's just like supply and demand.
But to be fair, that's standard knowledge that you get through like actually working there, and like you tend to know the ins and outs of a said business, working in a said business for like a lot of time anyway.
But even in general, I feel like you always try and know more than you need to. Like, obviously we have half-time tangerine, subtle plug there, but like, I see you were talking about like the business side, like analytics, stats, like you know way more than a typical football fan, even though it's not necessarily business, but I can see you taking a bigger approach.
I feel like the more information that you have about something, like you're more likely to make an informed decision anyway. Like for example, with the football scenario, like to understand a lot of why I support Arsenal, like to understand why Arsenal are failing, you can't just look at the footballing reasons. You need to know the business side of things and why and how that affects their like footballing decisions that they've made. It's like you do need a lot more elements to like succeed in general anyway. Like you need a lot more information at your hand, like, and yeah, like analyzing that kind of information is what like is a key strength of mine, I'd say.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can attest to that. Do you feel like, I mean, this is a bit of a random question that I didn't even think about before, but
Yeah.
you know, in the Tangerines chat, you mentioned, I think it was Simi's article about how like Asian players get into football and stuff. Do you feel like there's a similar kind of thing in education where it's like the opposite, where Asian students get a lot more attention? You're kind of assumed to be way smarter than other ethnic minorities.
So I feel like because obviously, as I said, like within my culture, they've seen the template of going into entrepreneurism, owning your own business, and seeing that work. But I feel like for overall in the Asian culture, not just my like small tribe, the template they know is you go into higher probability jobs of success. So that's your doctors, lawyers, and your doctors, lawyers, your dentists and whatnot. So because every parent has seen that work, they kind of like push their kid earlier to go into them. I wouldn't say I felt the pressure to go into them. I wouldn't say I felt the pressure to go into those specific roles in general, but I would say that I've felt the pressure to succeed from my parents' behalf.
Yeah, I mean, CS is...
Yeah, like CS isn't like, but to be fair, like, I feel like CS is a mixture of parents' pressure / my own, like, curiosity behind it anyway.
Okay.
But, like, I would say, like, without the factor of parents' pressure, I don't think I don't know if, I can't say for certain, but I don't know if I'd be into CS as much as I am. But, like, it is definitely true where, like, as opposed to football, like, in terms of the STEM subjects or in terms of, like, academia, you do see the opposite kind of, like, representation for Asians within the fields anyway. Like, it's because of that parental pressure from home. And I feel like a lot of Asians, especially Southern Asians, and back home anyway, like, they come from, like, poverty as well. So they come from, like, poorer backgrounds. They come from the working class mindset of, I need to succeed to get out of this kind of situation. Like, parents don't want to see kids go through the same struggles that they did. So what they do is just pressurize them to go into the job that they feel are high probabilities of succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
But like what that does entail is that like they lack the depth and insight to seeing how 21st century jobs, how much there's a variety to the 21st century of jobs that are available that you can succeed with. So like, for example, for them, YouTubing is not something that can fathom to make as much money as it does, right? Like our culture doesn't lend itself to creating YouTubers. Like they lack the non-traditional insight to how like non-traditional jobs can make a load of money in like the internet era. But yeah, overall, like you would say that I feel like obviously it's a first generation thing too. Like for example, my kids, despite being Asian, will have a lot more freedom in terms of like what they end up choosing because I just know that there are multiple routes to success.
Okay.
Whilst my parents just come into this country, like they're just going to stick to what they know, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I see what you mean. But even my parents are second generation, but they still have a similar, like, low-key traditional mindset where it's like, you have to do. Well, they never pressured me as such.
Guaranteed. I'm not saying it's guaranteed that, like, if you're second generation, like, if your parents aren't going to be, like, pushing you towards a certain industry or a certain job. But I think more likely to in that case because they have just a more understanding of, like, the different paths to success in this country or in the West.
Yeah. I think what I was implying is that it's also a class thing. Like, if you're working class, you're always going to try and push your kids to not be working class. And it's hard to perceive how, like, because even though, like, YouTube or, like, I don't know, Instagram models and stuff, they can make it, I think the bar is so much higher. Because, like, everyone can do YouTube, but only, like, a couple of people can make it. Whereas, like, getting into uni is already a big, like, net or threshold or something that not necessarily guarantee success, but it means you're in a better bag.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think that there's a big correlation between like for example, there's a big correlation between your parents have, like, if your parents have gone uni and to your success. Because obviously uni isn't a guarantee of success, but it's a very good chance of success. And if the parents already have gone through that kind of phase, like, it's a lot easier for the children to go and follow the same footsteps because they just literally have a role model in their parents.
I want to ask one last question on like race and class and stuff, because I feel like we're doing hasn't been very student focused so far. But
yeah, but I feel like but even though it hasn't been like student focused, I feel like there will be a certain sect of every cohort of every year that goes through this problem as a student. So
yeah, for sure.
So it's not applicable to every student that goes to university. It just will be applicable to that certain minority that faces other challenges around just like the work that's presented in front of them for academia. Like, there are social, societal issues that they do face even before stepping through the door for university anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can touch on like what it's like being working class in a white man university in a bit. But I want to say, like, do you feel like in some capacity, because I don't know, I guess this is just my interpretation, but I feel like typical first gen Asian families seem less likely to try and assimilate into white culture compared to like a lot of my friends in the black community that are always like trying to be the cool ones, trying to fit in with the crowd.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, it's obviously a general statement, but based on those assumptions, do you think that's a benefit to you guys where you kind of just get on with it irrespective of like how people treat you?
I feel like there's pros and cons to like just sticking together, right? So like you can build like wealth by sticking together, helping your own community, and like the first generation lot staying together. But what that doesn't build is status within the wider community, right? So like what tends to happen is that, yes, you make money within your community, your household is doing well eventually, hopefully. But what happens is that you don't have the respect that you should deserve from your white counterparts simply because they have zero clue about what you do and how you do it and what you like how you are as people, how you are as a person. So like, of course, it's nice to be constantly surrounded by people that you know, but I feel like closing yourself off to the wider community at the same time doesn't give you that societal status push either. Like, you don't climb the status part of society. You don't get the respect that will then allow you to have so many other opportunities, like, and having a lot more representation within, like, for example, media, movies, TV shows, music. Like, once you start to assimilate yourself within the wider community around other people, then you start to see the representation, and then you start to like actually protest for representation. Because if you don't care about representation because you're within your community, then you're not going to fight for it if you don't see yourself in the white man's movies, are you? Like, you don't. But then that just lends itself to being ignorant around how they actually treat you, how they actually view you, the level of respect that they do give you. So like, yeah, the pros and cons to it, like you would have a more tight-knit community, but you just wouldn't have the societal impact that you should do and that you could do.
Yeah. Okay, because I feel like it's interesting when I hear from you, like, because you always seem like a very family-orientated guy. You're trying to, like you said before, build an empire in some capacity, but I never saw you too much in, like, all these different societies, or like trying to flex with new clothes, or stunt on LinkedIn. So I just find it.
Yeah, I'm not materialistic in that sense, no.
I just find it interesting how you've never, and a lot of my other Asian friends as well, have never really cared about status in a broader sense outside of like.
I feel like I do, so that's why like I want to integrate within the wider community more than my desire, because there's enough Asians to assimilate themselves within their own community. I feel like I want to be a good representative of Asians in the wider community and actually give an insight to them on how like effective, how smart, how intelligent, how forward thinking we can be as a community anyway.